Hey guys, kinggath here, and welcome to another episode of the kinggath. Wow, I can't even say my own name. Kinggath podcast. Today's guest is actually indirectly responsible for every mod I've ever created, and because he kind of trained me and didn't know he did it. So welcome, Seddon4494, and I'm just going to call you Seddon throughout the podcast if that's cool.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm going to tell all my friends then that I basically made sim settlements, given what you just said.
That's fair.
Brag to all my friends, yeah, I made that mod.
Oh, that's awesome. So you were one of the first people to actually put out a serious structure of tutorials, because when I had come to Fallout 4 modding, I hadn't modded any game in years, so I had to play catch up, and I just started by searching for Fallout 4 tutorials, and there were quite a few people who had some, but nobody had a structure to theirs. There were a lot of rambly tutorials, which are what I tend to make. So thank God for somebody like you who takes the time to do them focused. And at the time, I didn't realize how much stuff would carry over from Skyrim. So I was just really looking for it. It's fine, give me specifics to Fallout 4. And you really had a lot of those. So what inspired you to do all those?
Well, in terms of when I made the Fallout 4 ones, perhaps the structure came almost by accident, because I'd never modded Skyrim, so in some regards I was only one lesson ahead when learning the creation kit. So I just thought, well, the creation kit comes out, it's out today, so I want to get a tutorial out as soon as possible. So I just did making an NPC. That's pretty simple, and then I just kind of taught myself with that as I went along. Well, I kind of got started in the tutorials because when I was getting started, I found the problem that you would get the odd tutorial here and there, but nobody really covered even the really basic stuff. You would get here's kind of how to do a quest, and here's kind of how to do this really specific thing, but they would never kind of teach you what any of the steps meant or what you were supposed to do. You could just learn how to carbon copy a tutorial. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll just start making my own videos. So then I made my first ever tutorial, which is how to do an interior for Fallout 3. It's kind of just born out of my own frustration, I think, with finding it hard to learn.
Ah, fair. And I think teaching others is a great way to learn yourself, too. Just because then you're forced to understand all of the concepts behind it in order to articulate it.
Yeah, because that was what I kind of wanted to do with my tutorials, was not to just say, to create an interior, you do this, but I kind of wanted to explain why I was doing every step, so that people can kind of take the tutorial and then adapt it into their own formats, rather than because otherwise you just learn to copy paste my tutorial, and that's kind of no good if you want to make a mod.
That's true.
Yeah,
I struggled with that a lot when writing the toolkit for Sim Settlements. Was okay, how do I make sure people get all of the underlying mechanics behind it so that they can extrapolate on it and build from it? Otherwise, because I find that same thing with tutorials, not just with modding, but just in general. A lot of tutorials on the internet are good enough to teach you exactly how to do that one thing, but they very rarely give you the kind of insight behind why you're doing those things. And then so you end up with this hollow knowledge that you can't really build on.
Well, yeah, I just think that's actually understanding what you're doing is just really important when it comes to teaching. It's the most important thing.
That was definitely a lesson I wish I had learned in earlier years of my schooling, because I know so many times where I just was these teachers, or they don't know what they're doing. I don't need all this background stuff. And then I blew off, I totally failed my trig class in high school because I was I'm never going to need this. And now I'm in game development. It's oh my God, the amount of trig I need.
And so I've had to self-teach. Maths is useful after all.
Right. Yeah. Oh, there's where that math comes in useful. And actually, I think that would actually be a great way for math teachers to get through to at least guys now, with the amount of guys who play games. I mean, I know women play games as well, but the number of just looking at, I can look at my own audience of on YouTube and see the male to female ratio, and it's overwhelmingly male. So and there's always so if they wanted to get guys to go hardcore into the more intense math of just hey, you want to learn how to make Fortnite? Let me show you how bullet mechanics work.
I think people don't realise how much maths there is in game development, because I knew somebody who wanted to do game development, but he couldn't do any of the maths, and he tried to do a game development course, and he just had his friend do all the maths for him, but then when it got to exam time, he failed because he couldn't do any of the maths. So it's unfortunate for him. But
there's a lot of kind of shortcuts you can take now with it. I know I stumbled my way through some of the trig I ended up needing because I found some libraries to do it for me at some point. But there are always the point you get to a point where you're in no man's land, and then you need to understand it. Otherwise, you can't proceed.
Well, yeah.
So I think, and that's. Oh, go ahead.
So I was just going to say that I'm fortunate in the kind of modding I do, but it never involves desperately advanced mods because I mainly focus on questing and storytelling, so it never requires desperately advanced maths.
That's
so I'm
true.
lucky with that kind of stuff.
But I think the principle is 100% the case in modding of like you really need to learn how the different pieces work together. So that way when you come up with your idea of like, all right, I want the character to do this and then say this, and then depending on what the player responds, I want them to walk over here. Like you need to understand a lot of different mechanics and how they work at the low level so that you can take your, you know, your writing that's not written out in the terms of a game, but in just the idea of a story, and then convert that into the gameplay. Like you still need that baseline of understanding things. So like to do those quests, I think that's some of the more complex stuff of needing way more of the creation kit than a lot of other things.
I mean, it does when you start adding in player choice into your quests, because then a lot is going on sort of under the hood that you can't see when you have to anticipate, well, what might the player do now? If a player kills this character, what happens? If a player runs over here, what happens? And you have to start considering everything that might happen. That's when it gets really complicated.
Oh yeah, we've set ourselves a horrible trap with the Conqueror story. So I don't know if you've played it. And spoiler alert to anybody who wants to find this out on their own, although I did do a live stream about this. But we introduced a perk you can get really early on called Executioner, and it allows you to kill essential characters. So we're gonna have to, I'm sure we're gonna have to go to war with our own players about which characters they're killing within our story. Like we put it in there with the anticipation of like it'll be fun to let people go kill all of the characters maybe they were annoyed with that are the good guys in the game that they won't need to do our quest. But one of the side effects there is that they can also kill our characters, so that's probably gonna become a problem eventually.
Yeah, you just never know what somebody's going to do. People always find unanticipated ways to mess stuff up.
Yeah, well, I think some people find that to be a fun game too, especially on the professional level games. Like people will probably be more forgiving to us because like they recognize, you know, this is just a bunch of volunteers. So like there's gonna be some like holes in the game where we're gonna have to just, you know, not ruin our own experience. But when it comes to like a game from Bethesda, you just want everything to work. So then when you find like something you can do that's game breaking, then it's rather than being like, okay, well, I just shouldn't do that. I think more people are like, come on, Bethesda, you should have thought of this. So I understand why they have the essential status.
Yeah, I like it in games though when I do something weird and the developer has anticipated it. Like one that always sticks out in my mind is Red Faction Guerrilla, where I wondered, what happens if I kill my brother in the tutorial and you get a special failure message that says, WTF, you killed your brother. And I just love it when they anticipated the weird thing that I was going to do.
Oh man, that is one of my favorite games ever. Red Faction Guerrilla is fantastic. Love that game.
It's so good.
If y'all haven't played it, it's just like you're essentially on Mars, you're a miner, and most of the world is destructible, like not the planet itself, but like every building. And essentially, it's like kind of like a Far Cry setup. Like I call them regime takedown games, where you it's open world. You get to take it out however you want, and you just have like certain sectors of the map you've got to take out. But the destruction in there and just the different ways you can approach every objective is so damn fun.
I just remember being amazed by that. I can remember before I got it, playing the demo over and over and over again on the Xbox, because it gave, you know, like a 10-minute demo where you could just run around and smash stuff, and I just play it and play it and play it and play it, because I'd never seen anything like it with a destruction before. It was so good.
Yeah, it was so good. Like every building is built by its materials. Like it's got like the struts inside, and then the layers of metal over that, and then the exterior facade, and like just the depth they went into, and that was crazy. And I haven't seen another game really go into that since then. I know like the Battlefield series has a lot of good destructibility, and it was did Crackdown 3 ever come down? That was gonna be one of their selling features.
Oh, is that out? Crackdown 3.
I don't know. I just remember
idea.
seeing a video of it a few years ago, and like they were taking it to the next level. Like they were going to have a physics engine server that you tapped into, so they could do it like to the 10th degree, like just go way beyond what Red Faction Guerrilla did. And I don't know if the game ever saw the light of day or not.
I'm not sure about that, but if they did manage to pull that off, it'd be really good. Because I've not seen anything like some games have, walls you can break and stuff, but in terms of having the detailed structures of the buildings and them having specific weak points where if you break a weak point you can knock the whole thing down, like that kind of, I've never seen anything like that.
Right. And then it made it, the sledgehammer ended up being like the most fun weapon you could imagine.
I died so many deaths from sledgehammering buildings while I was inside.
But it really made for interesting gameplay in the sense that then they could introduce weapons where it was like they had no real other, like its own primary purpose was it could level buildings easily. If you hit the explosive in the right corner of the building, you could take it out. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, like getting your remote explosives and putting them on all the columns of a building and then just bringing it down on everyone. It's so great.
So satisfying. You're making me want to go play it again. I wonder if it holds up now. Like I've been having that experience a lot of getting nostalgia trips, and I'll go pick up an old game and like, ooh, this is a little rougher than I remember.
Well, I was doing that today actually, playing the Battlefront 2, the 2005 edition. When was it that came out? The classic Battlefront 2. I played that today.
Yeah.
And that is janky as hell, but it's still like loads of fun.
The new ones, I mean, aside from the loot box counters, they look freaking incredible. Like they look, it looks like the same level of CGI that's in the dang movies.
Well, yeah, I've never played any of them, but I've seen like videos, and it does look like incredible, like the detail in it.
Yeah, it really makes me want to go engage in the Star Wars universe, but I don't have enough time anymore. Like, and I have little urge to engage in competitive gaming anymore either.
No, that's a thing. I never really enjoy that. I prefer my single-player games. Like when I'm playing Battlefront 2, I only ever played Galactic Conquest when I played Battlefront 2. So hearing that wasn't in the new Battlefronts just immediately turned me off. Yeah, I don't really want to do the competitive shooting.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed to hear they canceled the single-player game they had planned.
That would have been really good, something like that. Like something like, new Knights of the Old Republic style thing. Yeah, because EA own Bioware, don't they? So they could put them on on another Star Wars role-playing game, and it could be great.
There was actually just an article about EA won't allow them to make a game. I don't remember what website I saw it on, but it came up on my newsfeed that EA is actively somebody leaked in Bioware that the EA is actively preventing them from working on a new KOTOR game.
It's crazy. Do they not want money? It would be a sure seller. It seems crazy.
I think it's a matter of they're so into the multiplayer thing, like they know the amount of money that brings in. Yeah, the live services. Well, and the fact that I think that you automatically sell more. This is just my theory, and there's probably ways to get numbers to verify this, but I would assume this makes sense. Is you sell way more. What's the thing? What are the microtransactions most of us are okay with?
Like cosmetic ones.
Cosmetic. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word cosmetic. Is that you sell more cosmetics in a multiplayer game because then people can show them off. Whereas in a single player, it's less important to who you're impressing yourself. Like it doesn't really matter. So I would think that they want multiplayer focused games because their whole business model is built around the billions of dollars of microtransaction money that they get off of FIFA and stuff. So
well, yeah, because I suppose in the multiplayer as well, it's for haves and have-nots, isn't it? Because you'll see somebody with a cool cosmetic and think, "Oh, I want that, I'll buy it." Whereas that you could never have that in a single-player game, so it's just you. So there's a kind of psychological manipulation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I assume it's just a matter of it's the same reason like they're working on Anthem now instead of another single-player focused game. Is that I imagine anybody under that umbrella is pretty much forced to work on some sort of multiplayer first type of game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's the industry's trend in that way because it's not my cup of tea at all. Like I generally don't like to rely on other people to have my fun, so I prefer to do like the single-player game so I can just drop in for 10 minutes or whatever, have a bit of fun on the game and come off. Whereas if I need to gather all my friends together and wrangle them, and he's busy on this day and they're busy on the other day, I just prefer to be able to jump straight into a single-player game.
I agree with that. I also find that there are certain things you can't really do in multiplayer games. Like you can't let the player become godlike, which is something that, while I don't want early in a game, I do like being able to get so powerful I overcome most of the threats in the game. So then it feels like the
power
RPG
trip,
matters.
Gathering power is a big part of that's why I love games like I guess games like Civilization as well, where you can accrue so much sort of land and resources and power. Those kinds of power gathering games, I love that stuff as well.
Yeah, because then you can basically, the game becomes really about the journey, because then the finale is just like a matter of clicking a few buttons because your guy's so good. Or in like Civ, you just have so much power, nobody can stand up to you. And like me, that really embraces that, it's about the journey, not the destination. The actual leveling is way more fun than like getting the finale. Like I find often in my Skyrim playthroughs, I just won't finish the game because I'm just like, I got my character to the point I want. I played through a lot of the stories, but I don't actually care about the ending because I'm just like, all right, whatever. I've seen it before. Like, I really was just in it for the exploration and the building up my character.
Because it's like that with since we're talking about online services. When I first started to notice that I actually hated Fallout 76 and didn't love it, was when I got to level 50 and leveling up stopped meaning anything. When I stopped being able to get perks, I suddenly realised that beyond what I was chasing, the next level, there was nothing there at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot you had a pretty awesome breakdown video where, like, because you were like me early on with 76 of like giving it a fair shot, trying to be objective about it, and then I remember you had your like last video on 76. It was kind of like screw this game, this is the worst.
I initially liked it. Like, I played it. I can remember playing it when the beta first came out. I stayed up. I think the beta started at 11 in the UK and finished at 3, and I played for solid hours that night playing it, thinking this is great, I'm having loads of fun here. Then, like, after a certain amount of time, all the flaws, just it's like scales fell from my eyes, I guess, and I just thought, this is, I'm not enjoying any of this, and I'm actively, like, when I'm playing it, I'm annoyed constantly. So then I thought, screw this. I took my beta videos down because I thought it's disingenuous to leave them up in case someone sees it and thinks I think the game is good. And I made that kind of video where I just summed up all my kind of frustrations with it. Kind of a bit of a rambly video, but I was just at that point like, screw this game. This is my splattering of thoughts on why I'm just so at the end of my rope with it.
Yours was one of the few where I was like, this is actually authentic. It's not just jumping on the rage train that a lot of people seem to be doing, to get those internet points. Yeah, yours was just like genuinely converted.
Yeah, there were some critics that I follow who, like, I knew they were going to hate it, like, no matter what it had been, because they just don't like online services, so they're inherently going to hate it. But I did feel that, like, and I don't want to say that, no, it feels a bit to say that my video was, better. I don't know, it's like it felt more genuine because it came from my own frustration. When as I was making it, I thought this, because I wanted to really break it down and explain not just what I hated, but why I hated it. Again, sure. like I do with tutorials, like explaining why. I wanted to say, well, this is why I think the game doesn't work, and this is why I personally find it to be a bit grating.
Yeah, I never got viscerally angry at the game because I never got into the late game. I think my top characters, like in the low level 20s, I was actually doing a let's play on it with the plan of like, let's talk about this from modding perspective, and I have a few episodes out, and I ended up kind of abandoning the series because I wasn't finding any joy in logging into the game, and I knew that was going to come through. It was like no one's going to want to watch a guy wishy-washy about a game. And so it was like, all right, I'll just let that quietly die for now, and I'll maybe pop back in after they do some major patching to see if things have improved. But I don't know if I think it might be too late, like that ship has sailed as far as, because generally it's those first impressions are so important. Like, like that really matters. Like you've gotta, if you don't have a strong hook right away and they don't get their chains into you, it's pretty hard to do it later, just because it's going to be hard. You lose all that feel of newness. So instead, all I'm going to, like, for example, if I go back in after a patch day, all I'm going to be able to see are those little things they changed. I have already had the first experience of everything that's in there. So like, I can't undo that. I can't unsee what I've done. And I don't have that sense of wonder and exploration left anymore. That can normally pull you through those, like any of those rough moments. So I think like the battle that Bethesda has to convert new players is going to be rough, or to convert, rather, I should say, players like us who tried it at the first time and then left, like pulling us back in. I don't know how they're going to do it other than trying to do something like what No Man's Sky did, where it was like a total overhaul of the gameplay. I think that was a really smart move.
It's going to have to be quite, I think, a radical change, because again, part of the joy and one of the things I mentioned in my beta video, and actually that I still stand by, is I thought it was a beautiful world. Like, I loved wandering the forest and listening to the music, the soundtrack. I still listen to that just to relax, like the soundtrack when you're wandering around the forest. I really like it. But then eventually, I've been to all the locations now, so even if they do say, well, we've got human NPCs now, the joy, like you said, the joy of exploration's gone because I've seen it all now. So it's going to be kind of hard to pull me back in. And then I'll also feel like, if they don't change enough, I'll feel, like I'm still playing the same crap game. But if they change too much, I'll feel left behind, like, oh, well, I'm never going to catch up now because they've changed so much. Right. So it's going to be really hard. It might end up just being literally impossible for them to bring me back.
Right. And it might be that that's not going to be their goal anymore, because there are a lot of people playing it who still actively enjoy it, and so like they also can't alienate those players. It's a real tough. True. It's one of the tough sides of the software as a service games is, trying to capitulate to everybody is pretty difficult. But they set themselves up for what I think is the impossible challenge, and I think part of it is due to their marketing. I think the fact that they tagged on to the Fallout license with a game that feels nothing like Fallout was kind of a little shady. And unfortunate, but I think people
if they'd set expectations better, because like for example, Fallout Shelter, and I don't want to say that they're the same in scale or budget or anything, but Fallout Shelter is a little twiddly little mobile game, and they were like, oh, we've also released this twiddly little mobile game, and I sunk hours into that because my expectations were twiddly little mobile game, but they set this up as if it was Fallout 5, and it was never going to be that. Whereas if they just said, oh, well, here's kind of a little side project we've been working on, it's an online multiplayer, it costs half as much as your standard edition, here it is, people might have gone in and thought, well, this is all right, for a, part way between installments, something that they've been working on as a side project, it's okay. But they set expectations so high and thought this is Fallout 5, and it was never intended to be that, but everyone started to think it was that, and we went into it some of us having paid £170, some fools like me, and come out and be really annoyed with it because we sunk all that money into something that was no good.
Now, do you think did it sour you enough to skip their next game, or do you have enough goodwill toward Bethesda where you're going to grab like Starfield or whatever happens to be next?
That's something I've debated on, because I still love Fallout. I still, I've started a new New Vegas game recently. I started a new Fallout 4 game. So I might be inclined. I don't know. That's the thing. I'm agonizing over it because I also really love the TAT, like the video game TAT that they sell. So I would almost want to just buy, if they brought out a new version, just spend the ridiculously overpriced price to get the TATs, because I'm a sucker for it, for the stuff that they sell.
What's that game you just mentioned? TAT?
No, I was saying the TAT, the crap they give out with the game. Like the helmet.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I mean by the TAT. Yeah, it's like I've got the power armor helmet on my shelf up here. I've got all the little pop vinyl figures. I've got bobbleheads and a lunchbox and poker chips. I'm a sucker for that. So if they have
I'm a bit of a sucker for that too. I've got the Pip-Boy from Fallout 4, the Pip-Boy from 76, and
I got that build your own
like
Pip-Boy kit that they brought out, and so I built the Pip-Boy. I got the Fallout 4 Pip-Boy, all of that little power armor statue from a Fallout 3 collector's edition, all that stuff.
Oh, that thing looks sweet. I never picked up one of those. I was kind of out of so I was a Fallout junkie with the originals when I was like in high school, and then when Fallout 3 came out, I was one of those idiots who was like, oh no, this can't leave isometric, like it's never going to be the same, it's not going to work. And then so I waited and I played it like 3 or 4 years after it came out. I was like, okay, this is really good. Like they really, the Morrowind formula does work on Fallout. And
I remember how excited I was. I got that for the Christmas that it came out. I got that game. When did that? Was it 2006 that game came out?
Something like that, maybe 2007, 2008. I think it was 2008.
Maybe it was 2008. Feels more.
And then 2011 was Skyrim, something like that, because it was.
I remember how excited I was for that, and I'd heard so much about it. Like, you can walk out of a vault and you can find your dad immediately, or you might spend ages trying to find him, and there's all these choices you can make. I was like, wow, this sounds amazing. Just remember, I was so excited for him. I think I actually hadn't played the originals then. That was my introduction to Fallout. So I had never played anything like it before at that point. So I was too young to have played the originals.
Sure. And it's hard to go back and play the originals now. Like I tried that about a year ago of loading up, because they keep giving them away now. Like they I've got multiple copies because they're just throwing them around. And they're tough to play. Like not just from the fact that the graphics are because like old graphics, I actually don't mind that much, but there are some games I do care with the graphics. Like it's really hard for me to play N64 games anymore. But like the graphics are actually pretty good in the old Fallout games because they actually did like full CGI lip syncing characters to talk.
Heads.
Like, yeah, for me it's the gameplay is rough. Like I don't have the patience for turn-based strategy games like that anymore.
Yeah, like I went back and played from the original ones, and I did manage to complete Fallout 1 eventually, but I found it to be really hard as well. Like it's a really difficult game. Like maybe that's just because it's not a style I'm used to because I never played the originals. But doing all that like sort of it's quite. The character specifications are quite a lot deeper in older games than in modern ones. I'm gonna make myself sound really young, like a child. But I couldn't. I found it did eventually get the hang of it and beat it, but it was really, really difficult. I found
there was a much bigger skill gap in those older games because they didn't worry about making sure every build was feasible. It was literally just like let you do what you want. Sometimes you'd make characters that were garbage, and like you would have to just deal with it. And so that it was easy to create characters that were just not plausible, like without without you having to constantly be farming up more, stim packs and ammo and whatnot. So if you didn't have like a good mix of combat and non-combat skills, you could kind of screw yourself that way.
Yeah, I think that's what I came to realize playing it. That and Wasteland 2 as well. When I played that, like you have to start and restart quite a lot till you figure out what works and what doesn't, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's a tough sell to people nowadays, like who just kind of want that instant gratification in their games. So like I don't even know if I have the time for that anymore. So I get it. Like it's just time's a resource we can't make more of. Yeah. So having to waste it on buggy or bad games is a tough proposition.
Yeah, but I mean that's something I was going to comment on Fallout 76 about whether or not I'll go back to it. It'll probably come back to do I really even have time? Because at that point, God knows how many other better games will have come out, and even then, sometimes I buy a load of random old games, for Steam sales on. Buy a bunch of random old games that I never got around to playing and playing. So I don't know if I have time to go back to a game that I've tried once and disliked.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the weird things with gaming now, with the fact that so many games are going to software as a service. It does eventually get to a point where there's like oversaturation of if you're going to invest the amount of time these game companies want you to invest in their game, it's essentially going to lower the market cap for the games industry because essentially that player now is hooked into a loop with this one company, and so they're only going to spend. And that's kind of where I think modding does the same thing. Of like, I sometimes when I get hooked on a game like Fallout 4, it just cuts all of my gaming spending down for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing happened when I was in a World of Warcraft hook. Is like there were literal years where I bought no other games because I was just so hooked into the Warcraft franchise. And then like right now I'm so hooked into Fallout 4, or when Skyrim came out, it was just like all Skyrim all the time. Like, what do I need to buy anything else for? And I think it's worse with these multiplayer games as far as they're getting more people into that.
Well, definitely. I mean, they do that, and then they also want annualized franchises at the same time, like your Assassin's Creeds. Were we supposed to sink all our time into Origins when now Odyssey is out a year later? And then there'll be another one out next year, and we're supposed to sink all our time into that as well. And so I don't have time for any of it, especially since I'm still sinking all my time into Fallout 4, which is years old at this point.
Yeah. And I think the games industry is suffering from that, and that's why they're pushing the microtransactions, because they're like, all right, if we're making these games so long that people are hooked into them all the time, we need them to be spending money within the game they're stuck on if they're not going to buy more of our games.
Well, yes. I've seen the microtransactions again in Fallout 76. Apparently they're creeping up, to keep bagging on that game, they're creeping up the prices on the Fallout 76 microtransactions, so I hear.
Oh, the prices on that store are absurd. Just absurd. Like I get their ideas that, you can earn the currency in game, but it doesn't matter. Like you look at, there's also a raw dollar value to or cost to them. When you look at those prices, it's like, what? Like $20 for some pictures? Like, what is going on here?
It's ludicrous, isn't it? The kind of thing that modders would make, for free in the past, which again, maybe perhaps this is how they're trying to tighten their grip on modding by making it a live service to go all conspiracy theory. Which maybe it'll might reduce the ability to make mods because they're selling them. The price they're selling little bits of tiddly crap.
I mean, it absolutely is going to slow down the release of mods. And I actually predicted this happening with Fallout 5 as well, and Starfield and ES6, is that all of them are going to get delayed modding, is my assumption. Because they're going to want to try and make some money through their microtransaction systems. And as a pro business person, I don't blame them in that regard, but as a gamer, it sucks. Because I'd rather have, as much content as I can get for little money. And more importantly, I would like to have access to mods right away, especially in Bethesda games, because then it allows you generally to fix the stuff that annoys you. So even if it's not just fixing bugs, we always have the unofficial patches, but being able to make little tweaks. I've talked a ton about the things in 76. They're just little things they did where I'm just I just don't like this system and I want it to go away. And I can't do that because there's no modding. Obviously, with being an online game, it makes it a bigger challenge altogether. But I could, once they start doing that to their single player games, and they already started with Fallout 4 because they delayed, not necessarily because they were trying to stop modding for the sake of selling microtransactions at the time. But I don't know what their reasoning was, but they delayed the CK release by a long time compared to what they do generally for other games.
Yeah, I mean, was it 6 months or a year? I'm trying to cast my mind back that far. It was a while,
I think it was 6 months. Yeah, but it might have been they wanted to get all of their DLC out before they put out, which would actually be sensible to me because then it lets them change things at the engine level without having to piss off everybody. Because there was a point where they changed something major at the engine level, and it broke something the unofficial patch was doing, and it corrupted a bunch of saves. So I could see it being that they just don't want the support nightmare of and then if you're trying to release your normal DLC content and your hands are tied because the community is expecting something to work a certain way, that would kind of suck. I could get that. I have to deal with that just with the add-on packs for some settlements. Is there certain things I can't change in the mod because I will break a bunch of content that people built and I don't want to do that. Yeah. And so I could see that maybe causing them to delay it, but now they've got incentive to delay it so that they can they can be the first ones to cash in on a lot of those ideas.
I mean, it's delaying the mods as well to some extent makes sense from a business perspective, because if they delay their creation kit until all their DLC is out, by the time they've exhausted their own content, suddenly they release the mods, and all people who are on the fence about the game are like, oh, well, now all their DLC is out and there are mods, so I'll buy it. So people will jump in. People will jump in now for the mods that start coming out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that might be what they're going to do with 76 is wait until their customer base is starting to wane, and then it's okay, well, we need a resurgence of players, or maybe they're going to wait until after, because the thing is the way they've talked about it being with the private servers is I assume what's going to happen is you're going to pay a monthly subscription to have them roll up a server for you, and then you'll have controls over it. I don't think it's ever going to be as advanced as a Minecraft private server, but I envision it'll be something along the lines of you get your own server spun up, you get to choose how many people can connect to it, whether it's private or public, and then you'll have an interface similar to Bethesda.net for mods where you can install from there. That's what I assume is going to happen. It's going to be only ESP plus BA2, no loose files, no script extender, nothing like that. That's what I'm assuming they're going to do, but that'll bring them in a nice chunk of monthly cash, because a lot of people are going to, even a lot of people I bet who are playing the game and enjoying it now, still want to just play by themselves and just be able to do whatever they want with the world.
Because I mean, the other players in Fallout 76 as well are barely a factor. So you can imagine some people want to just cut it out altogether, because it's not like they're adding some great fundamental part of the game, because nothing ever happens with the other players in my experience.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that they have that PvP thing coming where you'll be able to connect to a server where there's no PvP rules, where it's just free for all, do whatever you want. That actually is exciting to me, because I found and I described the 76 players as a nuisance more than everything else, because they just ruin my immersion with all their silly icons, and nobody talks to each other. Yeah. Half the time the people with the auto talk on, you can just hear them talking to their wives and children in the background, and it's this is just weird. Why is this a thing? So the PvP, though, that does seem like it would make players be an actual source of tension, as opposed to just being I just want to avoid you guys so I can explore.
I don't know why they didn't have that from the beginning, have PvP and non-PvP servers, because it would have just solved that issue where it feels like two completely separate games, like smashed together into one idea. So they were too frightened to lean too far into the MMO, but also too frightened to, keep it too similar to form because they wanted that MMO. So it ended up being kind of two games in one.
Yeah, I think they made a lot of middle of the road kind of wishy-washy decisions in the game, and it suffered for it. Like, I think if you try and cater to everybody, you cater to nobody, I think is what ends up happening.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what Fallout ended up being. It wanted to bring in that MMO audience, but it also wanted to keep that single-player audience, so it couldn't do both. It had to choose one.
There's still tons of game companies trying it, though, that really want to capture both. Like, Anthem is really trying to sell its idea that your personal little realm that you get to develop through your questing is going to capture that single player experience. I'll happily give that a go, just because I actually do like the Destiny gameplay that they're essentially copying.
Yeah.
And BioWare generally does great stuff. Like, I skipped Andromeda because people trashed it so much. I was just like, I don't want a bad feeling in my mouth or bad taste in my mouth over Mass Effect, because I love that trilogy. That trilogy is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, it's one of my Mass Effects, one of my favorite series. After Fallout, I think I played it all the way through 21 times. I played it.
Holy crap!
21 different Shepards from Mass Effect 1 to 3. I loved it. Just played it. I would just finish a Shepard and then just start another one. I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever had I can think of a couple of games I've done more than one, but I can't think of any I've hit double digits on. You love that franchise.
I really do. I've got pop vinyl figures of the Mass Effect characters as well. I just loved it. It's just played it. Wanted to try every. I even made a spreadsheet which had every decision in the game and a random number generator to choose my decisions, so I could make a random experience. Because I found, but when I got to a certain point, I'd played every Shepard I could imagine, so I had to start, randomly generating Shepards instead.
Oh, that's pretty
funny.
funny.
It made it quite fun. It took away, for the suicide mission, it took away my rational thought on, well, if I do this person will get saved, so I got to experience things that I wouldn't have experienced otherwise as well. So it ended up being quite interesting.
It did take me a lot of discipline to not save hack to get a perfect ending for that. I just let the characters die on my initial decisions. My first time through that section, but that was really cool to see that they did something like that.
Yeah, on my first playthrough of Mass Effect, I did use a guide to find out, because I didn't want anyone to die. I'll admit I used a guide.
I think that was after that scene, that was it Mass Effect 2 was the one where you can lose a ton of people. Yeah. That scene stuck with me, and I loved that, and I was hoping the same thing was going to happen in Inquisition. Do you like the Dragon Age series?
I've never played it, to be honest.
Okay, so there's a scene that had a feel like that of you're climbing up this mountain, and I think it was or a castle or something. It's been so long since I played it. I can't remember the exact scenario, but it had a similar tone of you're powering through your way to a boss. These scenarios come up where you have to make decisions, and it seemed like some characters were going to die, and I lost literally nobody, and I didn't think I made, and maybe I got lucky and made the right decisions, or somebody else, one of my friends I had a discussion with, said maybe it was doing all of the side quests before that, leading up to it, was enough to get you past those spots to where maybe that's how your decisions were reflected. And I got really into that game and did every single side quest and every single there was this in that game. There's this big map where all these missions come up where you can send your people to do missions, and I spent the time to do every single one of those, and so it might have just been that I set my character up to where I couldn't lose those, but I was hoping for that, because I always thought that was one of the cooler things BioWare did, was set up this high intensity moment where these decisions matter and people can die because of them.
Yeah, because I definitely know in Mass Effect 2 the side quests count, because even if you make the right decisions, if you haven't gained their loyalty, they still die. So it could be the same for Dragon Age.
Maybe, yeah, and maybe I just happened to make the right decisions in the moments to keep them alive. I just thought that was because when I did Mass Effect 2, I definitely lost several characters my first time, and I thought I made the right decision.
But they seem like rational decisions, I think, because you have to hack a door, so you pick a hacking person. But then some of them are less obvious, like who would be a good fire team leader is sometimes less obvious.
Sure. Yeah. Did you play Andromeda then, if you're a big enough Mass Effect fan?
No, I never played Andromeda. There was a reason why it was not something it was only out on or was it that I have an aversion to Origin? I knew there was some reason why I didn't play it. I think it was just because I have an aversion to Origin. And but then I started to hear the bad reviews come in for, this maybe I should definitely leave it in that case.
Now, Origin is their launcher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember using it once, and I wasn't a fan of it, but I don't remember why. I don't like if it was
I just generally don't like having to have loads of different, like, so when I boot up my computer and all the launchers try and launch at the same time and that kind of thing, I have to, manage all my games through different launchers and have all these other like things cluttering up my tray. I just prefer to have it all through Steam, I guess.
See, I was against I don't know how I feel about the launchers, so I get why the companies would have their own. I definitely prefer launchers to individual games. Like my pool of Blizzard games, like the number of icons I would have had to have, that would have been absurd. So I am happy to have the Battle.net launcher just to then I have one icon on my desktop to start up. Yeah. But yeah, I do hate that, like the number of things I have starting up in my system tray when I turn on my computer, where it just feels like, even though I know they're running at minimal resources most of the time, and they've got settings in place to only use your bandwidth when you're not active, it's still just in my head, it's like maybe it's just the old computer junkie in me of like keeping all that stuff down, because my computer, like my first computer in high school, if all that stuff was running, the whole thing would be sluggish. To me, those are just like flies I gotta swat, all those little things in the corner.
Yeah, I guess I don't really like the clutter of it. I just like everything to be in one place.
Yeah, although it looks like we're having
too many
a big
accounts as well.
Oh yeah, the account thing is obnoxious. Yeah. But that's, I mean, the average. I read something crazy, like the average number of online accounts people have, and it was like in the hundreds. I was like, that can't be real. That's crazy. Of just like accounts on different websites all over the internet and stuff.
You must have loads of old dead accounts for websites that probably don't even exist anymore. Must have so many. There's like I must have a MySpace. And when I was in high school, there was a thing called Pixo that was really trendy, where you could make your own website on there, and it would be a .pixo.com website, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
And that was dead trendy. All kinds of these old things, old accounts I must have that are long dead.
Right. But man, how many, how secure are the passwords and stuff in those databases of those defunct companies? Right.
I don't even think I use the same email address for anything over. I've got I used to have a different username I went by on the internet as well, so it will all be, so even if someone did get access to those details, I'd be no use to anybody. They could just get you into my Pixo account, which do what you want with that.
Go for it. Resurrect that old name. But it looks like we're having a big fracturing in the games industry right now, because there's all these Steam competitors, because you got like the Epic Store, Discord's getting into that game, Twitch and Amazon are getting into it. Like we're having a big fracturing in the Steam, because they made the mistake of not reducing their prices and keeping themselves competitive.
Yeah, and then the way Steam's going as well with crap on Steam, because I'm a big follower of do you know Jim Sterling?
Yeah,
because I watch all his YouTube videos, so I've seen a lot of the guff of the rubbish that's on Steam that infects Steam. So I suppose it's so cluttered, nobody can get in edgeways on Steam now with all the just rubbish that floods on. So I suppose it's perfect now for companies to say, for example, indie devs, come onto our platform, because you'll actually be able to get seen, because on Steam you'll be buried under the anime porn games and the asset flips, so.
Yeah, that's true. I actually had that conversation with somebody recently on this podcast. We were talking about how I can see the benefit to having more platforms, if nothing else, just for the spotlight section. Like, you only have so much room on your homepage. So, like, Steam can only advertise so many different games, and so it's nice to give, to have, if there's a couple of more in there, then you have more opportunities to spotlight some games and give some people a shot that maybe wouldn't have had them otherwise. I hadn't even thought about the clutter on Steam, but that does make sense, because there is a lot. It doesn't there's not a lot of requirements to get onto Steam. You can just kind of dump whatever you want up there.
Yeah, I think you just have to pay a one-off fee, and then you can just upload stuff. It's kind of the impression that I got, like, after Greenlight went, because even Greenlight was a terribly corrupt system, I gather. But I think now there's even less oversight. You just put something up, and that's it.
Yeah, I think I'm sure we're going to see a counter reaction from Steam at some point here, just because there are quite a few titles that were fairly large that are going exclusively Epic. Like I just saw Division 2 is going specifically Epic, so that's a big hit. And then like Fallout 76 did, they got out of the Steam game and went to their own launcher. Like those are some pretty big losses for Steam. So do you play any other games right now other than I mean, you said you were playing some old games, but you also mentioned you still play some Fallout 4. Are there any other franchises you find yourself playing regularly or going back to?
Regularly that I go back to. I used to play a lot of it. I don't play Half-Life as much as I used to, but that was one that I used to like to go back to and play through from start to finish. Like I would go through and I think I fancy going back and playing the original Half-Life and then going through Half-Life 2 and its episodes. Used to do that a lot. But I don't really do that so much anymore. I'm mostly on Fallout. It's my main game, really.
The original Half-Life, graphically, man, that is rough to look at now.
Oh, yeah, that definitely is. I got the Black Mesa mod, that updates the whole thing. So I was playing that not so long ago, bought that in one of the Steam sales. That makes it a lot more. It's bearable to play.
In that No-Clip documentary, I was like, wow, I remember this looking way more impressive than this when I first played it.
Really
Half-Life
is
2 still looks great.
What'd you say?
I said Half-Life 2 still looks great, though.
Oh, yeah. I think that still holds up basically well enough. I used to do a lot of playing on Gmod as well. I used to make films in that, like for my friends and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Got into the Machinima.
Yeah, they were pretty crap, but it was the best I could do for the age that I was. I can't think how old I must have been when I started, like probably... But I suppose it must have been about 16 when I used to make them. And they're pretty. I don't know if some of them might still be on in the depths of the very first ever videos that I ever uploaded to YouTube. If they're not still on my channel, but I have no idea.
Or were they under your former username with your Picto account?
No, they were definitely under the Seddon4494 name, and not as old as the old username.
Well, now I have something to do after the podcast. Go look up old Seddon Machinima.
If I had any foresight, I deleted them, but I have absolutely no idea.
That's funny. So do you have any more Fallout 4 mods in development? I know you've got that series of little story mods you were doing.
Yeah, I do have, because I was doing, I think I did mention that I was going to do like little smaller ones, but I've actually started something, because normally I've been doing a faction mod, so I did, Brotherhood and Institute, but I started a new mod recently because I've been, I stopped and started a lot of projects basically, so I haven't released anything massive, anything big in about a year now. I don't think I released Far Harbor Story was my last big one, and then I redid David Hunter and I did that Rad Ink one, which was alright. But now my next big one, I'm actually working on something that it's not a faction mod, it's like a new town that I've created. And the premise is that when the bombs went off, 200 years ago, a bunch of people travelled to a nearby vault thinking, well, we'll wait here for 20 years and in 20 years' time a vault will open. But it never opened, and so over 200 years, a big town has built up in the cave around the vault. And so that's
cool.
Basically the premise of my next mod, and it's called Forville, is the name of this. It's Vault 4. It's built around Vault 4, and so they've called their town Forville. And so it does have a story, but the main thrust of the mod is just going to be, going around the town and meeting the characters and doing quests for the characters who live in the town and stuff like that.
Now, is that, I don't recall, is Vault 4 one of the ones that's in Fallout 4 already?
It's a made up one that I've added. It's next the new one.
So are you doing a full custom world space, or is it going to be like through a load door within?
It's just in through a door in the Commonwealth, just an area where I thought was suitably far away from any of the other vaults. So I put it up near Salem. I think I put it. It's up near there, okay. So it's it's somewhere where none of the other vaults are really cover in their like catchment range that I imagined. So I thought, people of Salem would go to Vault 4 that I made up.
Sure.
And so then it's going to be basically that. So it's going to be kind of like more of a town mod with quite a lot of quests. I think I've done 19 quests in it so far. I've been working on it for quite a while. And that's the first half, because it's going to be basically in two halves, the story.
Okay.
So
that's really cool.
It's going to be
I've always appreciated
long.
the mods that are integrated with the base game world. Like some of the mods that do new world spaces can be cool. But what I always find, and this was a lot of people on our Discord have had this complaint about New California, was that it's really cool that it's a new world space, but they don't ever fill them out as much as Bethesda does. So it tends to be like outside of your main story, there's not a lot to do, and then you have this kind of dead world that doesn't want to be explored. Whereas if you're just integrating into the existing game, you don't have that problem because like you don't have, like you know that everything outside of your vault is all populated with stuff Bethesda put in there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got all, resources I can utilize. Like, I tend to try and think, well, what, for example, interiors have Bethesda not really made very much use of, and think, can I center a quest around that? So a character might want to go and do something in one of these unused interiors, and so then I can actually make something out of it. Stuff like that. So I try and sort of piggyback onto existing stuff to some degree.
That's a good idea. Maximize your workflow too, because you're one-man army.
Yeah, that's the thing. My mods take a long time as well because it's just me working on it. So it has to. I think I've been working on Forville for about 6 months. Started in the summer, so it's been a long. That's after I picked up and abandoned a lot of projects. I kept running out of ideas, and it was quite a big frustration. And then I had a lot of stressful time with like my real life work. So that ended up with me not really starting on anything for quite a while and started to get frustrated. And I had this idea. I remember saying to my girlfriend, I want to finish one of these ones that I've started, but I've got no ideas. And he said, well, if you've got no ideas, just drop them and do the one you've got an idea for. And I'm glad I did now, because I think this mod is actually going to get finished, unlike the other ones that I've started and abandoned. So I feel like this mod's actually going to get finished. I'm actually enjoying making it. I think it's going to be quite good. I think it's going to be
well,
decent.
that's one of the benefits of when you're going solo is you don't have anybody to answer to but yourself. So like you can do that. You can just drop those other ones and it's not a big deal.
But then
so if they're
just
not
as
working
equally,
for you,
I don't have anyone to help with ideas. Like I had some mods that I felt had good story premises, but trying to flesh them out and think, well, what does the player actually do in this story? I couldn't think of what to have happen at each stage, so I only had kind of a broad stroke ideas. Like for my Minuteman story that I started and abandoned, I had, an idea of you meet up with his Minuteman and he sends you off on like unique Minuteman missions, but then after you do a certain number of Minuteman missions, you find 2 unique raider gangs, and they're vying for control of, a sort of local area, and you can choose to team up with one of them or neither of them and team up with the Minutemen and wipe them both out, that kind of thing. And each raider group would have its own personality. But so I thought that's a good idea, but how does the mod actually play out in practice? That's what I really struggled with, and that's sort of how I ended up just getting I got some of the way through it, and then just thought I'm just struggling too much with ideas, and so I had to drop it.
Yeah, so you had the elevator pitch, but none of the content.
Yeah, so I want to come back to it, because every so often I come up with, I could do this, or this is a good character. But then sometimes I take characters from my abandoned mods and just integrate them into ones that are actually going well. So some of the stories that are going to show up in Forville are abandoned stories from other mods and stuff like that. Because that's the advantage of having a mod that isn't a campaign-based mod, but I can just kind of pull ideas and put them in.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about Fallout, and I've heard Todd Howard say as much in interviews, is that you can kind of throw whatever you want into Fallout, and it just works because the environment, it's silly enough and not taking itself seriously enough that there's not really much you can't put in there. You can't go too hard. You can't put a magic system in necessarily and have people buy it, but otherwise, story wise, you can kind of get away with anything, and it just feels right.
Yeah, and you can go for quite a lot of tones as well. So some of my quests I try and make a bit more light-hearted, and then some quests I've gone quite serious. Tried to make sort of serious and darker quests as well in there. You can go for there's quite a lot of tonal variants in Fallout as well.
Sure, but I think that I don't think it's bad to abandon ideas. It almost had a sound in your voice like you regret leaving things behind.
I kind of do.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think not every idea is going to have the legs to make it to completion. And when you're dealing with things that are unpaid like this, your own personal motivation is pretty much the most important fuel you've got to worry about.
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose when I get to that point where I'm thinking this mod is it's becoming a drag, it's becoming a chore. It does become difficult to actually make myself make it, because the only drive is me.
Right, it's only your own personal duty or whatever, duty to your ideas.
So what are you going to say?
You're one of the few. I was going to say you're one of the few modders who's put out quite a bit of story content, and that's one of the things that I think everybody who's way into the single player experience of the games is always clamoring for more. There's just never enough. in any of the games. Like even when I go back to Skyrim and like go look through and download all the story mods that are, you know, decent, because you know there's always a handful out there that are just like, you know, the person called it a story mod but it's nothing, and like there's just never enough. Like it's like the amount of hours that I'm happy to put into these games once I get sucked into them. It's like there's never enough third-party content to meet the demand. So it's a good space to be in, and I think people are ecstatic to hear. I'm sure people will be very happy to hear that you've got another one in the hopper.
I think what you said about clamoring for story content though is what makes me feel like the regret that I do over the mods that I haven't finished. Because like for example, where I'm up to in my current Fallout 4 playthrough, I'm playing Nuka World. And I think, damn, Nuka World is just so lackluster. I wish I'd finished Nuka World story. Because like my idea for Nuka World story was going to be, you can only play it after you've turned on the main power in Nuka World. But you encounter a pre-war family who on the day of the bombs started making the drive to Nuka World, but they were waylaid by the bombs and things like that. And they finally made it to Nuka World. And when they get to Nuka World, you start initially taking them around the park. So they each have an area they want to go. So the son wants to go to Kiddie Kingdom, the wife wants to go and see the animals, and the dad wants to go and drink at the bar. But then it turns out that their past kind of comes back to haunt them. So somebody is hunting the family, trying to capture the kid and enslave him. And they think that they've sort of killed him, but he comes back like as a ghoul, essentially, to kidnap the son. And that was my plan. But then I just couldn't think, well, how do I actually make that into quests that the player can play? So I had like that idea, but it just kind of petered out after I started, and then I left it for so long I'd forgotten where I was up to and it made it hard to pick up again. So I just feel it's quite regrettable because I wanted to add more reason to, you know, go back to the park and more things to do in the park, because there's just nothing to do in that DLC.
Yeah, it's a very impressive DLC on certain levels. So like visually, it's fantastic. Like the space is monstrous. It looks really cool. You know, some of the rides actually functioning is really awesome. And then like for developing Conqueror, I dove way into Nuka World's like back-end systems, and it's actually really deep. Like the amount of work they put in to make the rating system work. And there's all of these little integrations into the Commonwealth you can unlock where, you know, you'll start having random encounters with raiders. It's like, oh wow, they actually put a ton of effort into this, but I think it's spread too thin, and so people didn't have the great experience that they could have. I think it needed just a little more depth to it, but I was actually pleasantly surprised when I dug in and found out that they actually put that much work into it. I was like, okay, they actually did put, you know, a DLC's level, like a big DLC level worth of work in here. It just didn't hit as hard as Far Harbor.
Yeah, I think it's just the main story was a bit lacking. Like, you start off, you immediately become the boss, which I found very unbelievable. And then your quest is just go and clear out all the parks, and you never really get to spend very much time in any one of the parks. There's not a lot to do in any of the one of the parks. If there'd been more side quests, you know, that was another thing I wanted to add to Nuka World story, is more side quests. So, you know, more characters in the market, for example, that you could interact with, or more characters in each of the parks, you know, that kind of thing. So you actually had a reason to go and stay and hang around and look around and all that kind of stuff. Because I love the environment of that one. It's what I imagine New Vegas would be like if it had been made in Fallout 4.
Sure.
It's like the desert, sort of the desert area that surrounds the park.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been cool to see. I also would have liked to see a more thorough, and somebody tried to do this with a mod, and I've heard good things about it, but I doubt it's as deep as you would expect from a DLC, but a way to go against them that was more fleshed out, to where there was like a deeper Minuteman quest or something to take on the raiders.
Yeah, because when I first played through it, I actually ended up making, because I found it quite frustrating that the only option was murder the raiders. So I had a go at making my own mod, and I did make my own alternate ending mod, but it was only really intended for me, so I made a unique slave who was voiced by me, and you could essentially side with him instead, but all it amounted to was kill the raiders like while he was hanging out with you. It was just kind of for my own immersion, really, so I didn't have to just think, oh, I'm killing the raiders for no reason. Well, I'm killing the raiders with this guy. You know, this is his, you know, his more real, because I added a little extra quest where you have to buy guns, and so then all the traders actually join in the fight, you know, that kind of stuff. Sure. But it was just really for me, you know, for my own entertainment.
So we're not going to see a release of that.
No, I think I deleted it actually because it ended up
the rebel slave.
It ended up something went wrong when I was editing it, and it messed up some of the location data. So I thought, well, I can't really release this because it's a little bit clunky. So I ended up deleting it because my Nuka World crashes a lot, and I thought it might have been because I accidentally messed up some of the location data on that. So I think I ended up deleting my own good ending mods, and I just always play a raider in that. I just play through the raider quest.
Sure.
Just get the power turned back on as a raider and just leave it, because I'm not that fussed about the Minutemen in most of my playthroughs.
Right. Yeah, I find there's it's a big split on that. There's like half the people seem to hate the Minutemen with a passion, and then a lot of other people are just like they want to go, pro. Not necessarily pro Minutemen, but at least good, like all good guy. No faltering from that line at all. And so then the Minutemen end up being the drive for that.
The only way to get the most out of Nuka World is to be a raider, so I kind of almost put it on hold and just imagine, well, my character, maybe my character's desperate for the money, so they become a raider, just get 1 or 2 outposts, get a little bit of money coming in that way. But they're mostly good. It's a little bit suspension of disbelief, really, in that regard. But yeah, I just want to get the most out of the DLC that I paid all that money for, so...
I think that's one of the niches we're trying to fill with Conqueror is to give you a means of being a raider right from the get-go, so that you don't have to like just pretend your first 20 levels didn't happen, because it's really hard to do any semblance of bad guy in the Commonwealth. Like pretty much aside from like the Triggermen quest and like the there's some stuff in the Diamond City Tap House with you can do like there's a few points where you can kind of make a dark decision, but for the most part every quest and every decision is kill the bad guys.
Yeah, because I found that if you try and be bad in that game, all you do is cut yourself off from content, so you can murder people but then you just don't get to do their quest, or you can be rude to them but then you just don't get to do their quest. So generally you are forced into being good and polite for most of the game.
Yeah, and I get why they have to end up doing this. Is just like every time, and this is why most RPGs I think feel a little bit hollow and like your decisions don't matter, is because every time they introduce a forked decision, they double the work of that point. So like, I get why these game companies can't do that necessarily, and that's why the few game companies that do are lauded with praise, because it's like, oh wow, we don't see this anymore. But I get why it's such a block on that. Like I know a lot of our own stuff that we're doing in the quests for the Sim Settlement stuff now that we're getting into questing is fairly linear, just because it's like, well, we don't have the resources to like offer too many decisions, because each time you do that, you then have to take the whole story to conclusion down that different branch.
Yeah, because it compounds. The choices compound on top of each other. Did they make choice A or B? Did they make A, B, C? Did they make A, B, C? All the different possible combinations that they could do. It compounds and compounds until you've just got, so many threads, you don't know what to do with them all.
Right. It's and I think back in the day when we had like the text-based ones, like did you ever play, I know it sounds like you were too young to have played this when it came out, but maybe you've gone back and played it, but have you played Planescape Torment?
No, never.
That game it's very much about like character development and interaction more than like there's combat to it. It's got D&D style combat, but it's definitely, that's kind of a secondary thing in that game, in the sense that you can avoid a lot of it, and it's not as key to the experience, at least from what I recall. But it was a lot about making decisions, and like the number of different like permutations and endings in that were pretty crazy. But I think that was a lot easier to do when the game was driven primarily by text, and like you didn't have this expectation of like cinematic movement within the scene, and they had voice acting in that, but I don't believe it was every single character, every single line. I think it was like the main characters in certain sequences. But like now the expectation of production value, like to do that for all those different branches is a lot. It's a pretty substantial amount of work. Like I saw with Outer Worlds, they got all that press because they essentially like made themselves look like, hey, we're doing the Fallout you wanted, like kind of capitalized on the 76 thing. But then they quickly are like following it up with, okay guys, just so you know, this is not New Vegas 2. We don't have the resources to do anything like that. Like we're a small company now, where they had to set the expectations lower.
Yeah, I suppose that's important. Setting your expectations definitely important.
I would say, especially with smaller game companies, like if you can, because it's a lot easier to make your stuff look AAA now. Like I think the technology has gotten to a point where we're hitting the top of the or I guess maybe it's the bottom of the uncanny valley, to where like things are hitting kind of a cap and is how good they can actually look. And then so as everybody, even the indie developers, start to approach that, then it's going to be, you kind of have to set the expectations of like, all right, the depth of our content can only go so far because we only have, we've got 20 guys on our team versus these big, the AAAs who are rocking hundreds of people. Like the Assassin's Creed team, I think for Assassin's Creed 2, I think it was like 400 some people. It was like, that is nuts. Just nuts.
I can't even imagine coordinate that many people.
Right. I can't. I can barely coordinate the Sim Settlements team, much less make it 100 plus, several hundred people. My God.
It's just, for some people, I think being linear has become a bit of like a bad. People don't like linear games. I don't think as much, or at least that's the impression that I get. That some criticism I see is, it's too linear. Whereas, I don't think there's inherently anything wrong with a linear story either. With just telling, the specific story you want and guiding the player down that route.
I think one of the objections to it is just that games are like one of the few unique mediums where player choice can have a place where you can actually guide the narrative. Like you can't have a movie to do that. I mean, I know there's that what's that, Bandersnitch, the Black Mirror thing, like is experimenting with television where you can kind of guide your way through it, and but generally outside of those experiments, it's most media, television, books, movies it's always linear. Games, you have this unique opportunity to not be linear, so then people want to see more of that, I think. But
yes, I suppose that's true. In the interactive nature, you can't really do that with any other medium. I did have a joke about that Bandersnatch with my friends, actually, that Charlie Brooker clearly thinks he's invented something new by combining the video and the game. When essentially, it's a live-action video game, isn't it? To some degree, he just put it on Netflix instead of Steam. Like if he put it on Steam, he could have sold it as a video game. So I had a bit of a laugh from my friends about that.
So I get why people are complaining about it, but I don't know if people think about the amount of like extra work that adds. What I would see more likely to happen is shorter games having more choice that matters. So we've also gotten used to like games selling us on, you'll have hundreds of hours, but I don't know that that's necessarily good, because generally after a few dozen hours, you're in the gameplay loop, and then it's like, then does the length actually add anything to it, or is it just grinding for most games?
It comes back as well to what we said earlier about time. Like, do I even have the time to sink hundreds of hours into this game when I could have a really great 5-hour experience? And that's fine. There's no inherent problem with having a shorter experience that was really, really good and tight and controlled, and and I enjoyed.
Right, and so maybe that's more of what we should be expecting, and I think I'd be pretty happy with that, because every time I do bust out, like a fully narrative game, I'm always happy about it. Like I always have a great experience at the end of it, and I never lament that it's not longer.
Oh yeah, like some have played some really great games that were just pure narrative, really, and were quite linear. Like, have you ever played Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons?
I have not, but I've watched most of it played online.
No, that was really. I thought that was really, really good. That was so good that I'll probably never play it again. I think, because that was so good. Because I think I've almost had my fill of it. Because it was good. I thought it was quite. I got quite upset playing it as well. I thought it was quite an emotional game, like really effective emotional game. The way it tied all of its mechanics into its narrative, and all of its, even the control scheme is tied into the narrative, was really impressive.
Sure.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, not a lot of those games you need to play again. I find I have the same thing happen with some movies. Like there's movies I've watched where I've just never wanted to watch them again, but it doesn't mean it's not, because it's not a great movie. It's just like it didn't, the effect is there. I had the experience. I don't necessarily need it again. I'm never going to forget because the emotion was strong in it or whatever.
I could never play it again and get the same experience out of it, because I feel like the way that I felt playing it the first time, it would just be diminishing returns if I tried to play it again. Right. Yeah, that's how I felt about. Good enough.
For me, the games that stand out the strongest in that regard are the BioShock series. Those moments where they reveal everything to you. It was like so shaking to me. I was like, oh my God, like that was such a cool moment. Like I know without that moment, like the gameplay, the game, like BioShock, like the first BioShock gameplay was good. It was entertaining for what it was, but it wasn't like the depth of something like these RPGs we play like Fallout. So it doesn't draw me in for the gameplay, and so then without those impactful story moments to hit me again, I'm just like, well, I don't really need to play it ever again. Like I'll never forget the moment with the golf club. Like that's just
yeah. With games like. So I was just gonna say, with games like that, it can be fun to play again and spot the stuff you missed. Like when you finally find out exactly what's going on, and you play it again with that new knowledge, you can get a little bit extra. So that's why I find like how much sometimes I like to know twists. Like I like to know twists in games and movies and stuff because I can spot and say, oh, that was that. Oh, that was he was doing that thing for that reason.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. I don't think I've generally gone through and done that. I just accept it for what it is. But I could see the draw there of like, I know a lot of people did that with Sixth Sense. Like you find out the ending and then you're like going back and be like, no, he had to have talked to somebody, and you go watch it again to see if you can find the director's making a mistake or whatever.
Yeah.
But that, I would definitely be pro shorter experiences, because the only games that I tend to want unlimited time in tend to be the open world RPGs where like it's almost exclusively the Bethesda games, and I think it's just because I feel like I've got this blank palette of a character. The world is fun to explore, and like every time I find something, I know there's a bunch of depth to it. So like you find a new vault, and it's like, oh god, I gotta go find out what's the secret behind this one, and digging into it. And like those games are one of the few where I'm just like, this can just go on forever, and I'd be happy. And that's probably why I mod too, so I can make it last forever. But outside of those, I rarely am like ending a game and being like, I wish this had another 100 hours to it.
I think most of the time I get to an end and I'm satisfied. Like I feel like that was a sufficient experience.
I would say, if anything, I would like games to be shorter. Like I've got quite a few games in my catalog of stuff I haven't finished yet, where I was just like, I got in so many hours and then I'm just like, I'm kind of ready for another game.
I've got a lot of games like usually games I end up picking up in the Steam sales. Like I bought Alan Wake in my last Steam sale. I still haven't played it. I played like an hour and then I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah, I've got a lot like that. And I used to, when I couldn't afford many games, I was always I would like personal crack the whip on myself to be like, you have to finish that game before you can go buy another one. So then it was like, then I would just not game because like I really don't want to finish that one. And so I would have like a handful of games that would just remain half finished and feeling guilty about it, like feeling guilty that I spent the money and then I never finished it. But really now I'm at the point where I'm like, well, that's just dumb. Like if you don't like a game enough to put your time in, like how much free time do you really have in your life to be wasting on games that aren't good?
Well, that's the thing. You can't be forcing yourself to play something you don't like.
Right.
Yes, it just.
But I would say I would argue the same. I would argue the same to your mods. You shouldn't feel guilty or force yourself to make a mod that you're not passionate about.
Well, I mean that's what my girlfriend ended up saying, and I'm grateful that she said that to me. Otherwise, I would still be languishing. I'd probably still be languishing on a pre-war story. I think was the last one I languished on. I would still be languishing on that, and wouldn't have even started Forville, which I'm actually excited to make.
Well, it sounds like you've got a good chunk into there. Do you have a potential release date for it, for Fallville?
Oh god, I don't want to say at all, because if it's taken me 6 months to get to this point, it could be, and I don't know what's going to get thrown up, because in the next 6 months there's a lot happening in my real life with my real work, so I'm on a tight schedule with producing for that. So I don't want to say anything like a release date, and then I've got to get voice actors, quite a lot of voice actors as well. This mod's got loads of characters in it, so God knows how long. Before Fallout 5.
Before Fallout 5, that's a good goal.
Yeah, that's my hope.
Yeah, oh man, I feel so bad about those ultra mod projects, those like super game-changing world, entire world mods that don't get released until after the next game comes out. Like New California was one where it was like, oh, you guys didn't quite make it before. I mean, actually they missed it by years, but they started well before Fallout 4 was even announced, and then so like that's got to be harsh to like not get those done in time.
Didn't it start as a Fallout? It's Project Brazil, isn't it? New California, they renamed it.
Right.
Didn't it didn't it start as a Fallout 3 mod, and they had to move it to New Vegas? If
Oh,
I
did it?
remember right.
Maybe.
I'm sure I can remember reading that. Yeah, because I worked on that briefly. Again, that was one of the times when I worked on group. I worked on group projects, which I generally don't do these days because I'm not very good at them. But I worked on that in my first year of university. Then briefly in my third year, I did just a few bits and pieces, like the odd little bit of scripted sequences here and there. That was a long time ago. I do always feel sorry when I see them, because I think about these like Fallout 4 New Vegas, and I think, will it ever be done?
Right.
Because I'd love it to be done, because New Vegas, I would love to see come to the get an update to the Fallout 4 engine, but these things take so long.
Yeah, they take so damn long. And there's a lot of great quality of life improvements to Fallout 4 that I would love to see make it into the other game. The one that always strikes me in those big mod projects of like, will it ever see the light of day, is the Skywind and Skyblivion.
Oh gosh!
Because I would love to go do Morrowind again in a new engine, and I never gave Oblivion a fair shot. Because it came out right in the height of my World of Warcraft addiction. So it was like, I put in a dozen hours for it, but then it was like, I got to get back and raid. I never gave it a fair shot. And I tried to play it a couple of years ago, and it's just so tough to look at. And there are certain mechanics that are so bad, like using a bow and arrow in that game compared to Skyrim is painful. Just painful.
Yeah. It's like the shooting in Fallout 3 in New Vegas, because like I said, I went back and started a New Vegas game recently, and good grief, the shooting in that is awful. Like, you'll be hitting them and not doing any damage. It's just like, what is going on? You can't aim especially in Fallout 3 where there's no iron sights as well. Like, it's so clunky trying to get back to those old games.
Yeah, you 100% have to do VATS, and that was one of the things where it was a holdover from Fallout 1 and 2, where you literally, like, VATS was literally the only way you could shoot. There wasn't even an option to just free shoot, because that was kind of the balance of the game, was that you had you had so many points to use for your turn. But yeah, that was tough to deal with. So I was glad they went away from that for Fallout 4, because the Fallout 4 shooting mechanics are actually really good.
Oh yeah, it's a huge improvement. Like, playing that, everything, it feels better to shoot the guns, as well as it actually being better. You hit where you're aiming. It actually feels better. The guns feel like they've got more sort of heft to them. Yeah.
I was glad to see all those improvements. So it would be cool to see that happen too. And it's like, I saw the Capital Wasteland project was rebooted. So maybe one day post and actually they probably will beat Fallout 5 if they keep at it, just because now we've got, we know Bethesda's cycle is 3 to 5 years. So they've got their next 2 games on deck, and we know they're not Fallout 5. So they've got a good amount of time to get those out.
Yeah, gives me some hope, and gives me hope for my own projects as well, that I'll actually get something finished. So,
although, what would you say percentage-wise you're through? Do you have any idea, or are you kind of?
Well, in terms of quests, I'm halfway done, because I divided the mod in my head into 2 acts. So there's Act 1, where it's there's an election going on in Thorville, which is the premise of Act 1. And then there's a major story event that happens, which then changes the focus of the story, and I've just started that, so maybe halfway. Okay, that's still a good chunk down. But you said you got a lot of real life, so you can't commit to dates. That's fair. I don't like committing to dates either on my stuff until I'm positive I can hit said date, because I hate. I hate having a date on people's minds out in the public and then not being able to follow through on it. It just feels bad. Like, I'm okay missing a date for myself. I'm okay throwing out, potential dates among the team. But like, as soon as I put something out public, I feel like this like uncontrollable obligation to hit it. Like, I just can't. It just feels so terrible to like make those declarations to the world and then not follow through. Because if I did give it a date, like, odds are good I'd miss it, because there are some times when I can go quite a long time without doing any modding, and then sometimes I'll sit and all I will do in a day is work on my mods, and I'll get loads done. So it's impossible to say that. I never know what's going to come up in, like, with my real life work. I just never know what's going to happen.
Sure.
So,
I feel the same way with the modding of some days. If I sit down and I just get into a flow, I can knock out more in that day than I would like in the 3 weeks prior. It's just or like even just like yesterday, I spent some hours modding, and I just kept banging my head against one thing over and over and over again, and then finally solved it. And I was like, that's all I did today. Like I used my entire free time and just solved this one stupid little problem. And like that can happen a lot in modding, because there's nobody to turn to. Like you don't really have a instruction manual, or like you don't have access to the guy who created the creation kit to just be like, hey, how do I do this?
Yeah.
So that can be frustrating.
I spent hours and hours trying to fix a mistake once, but I discovered there was one tiny spelling mistake. I was just like, all of this script should be right, and I was making every conceivable change, and then there was like one tiny typo in the script. And I can't believe I sat here for hours, and that was it. That was the only change I had to do.
That's almost always it, though, especially in programming. It will be, you'll go hours and hours and hours, and it'll turn out to be like a missing semicolon, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like all that.
I'm terrible for spotting. Like anyone who's played any of my mods and read any terminal entries will know I'm terrible for not spotting typos. Like my mods are kind of riddled with spelling. The number one complaint I get in comments is this is spelled wrong, and it's like, oh, I just can't see even my supervisor from a PhD. My supervisor's always going on at me. Here's a typo. Here's a typo. I was like, for God's sake, I try so hard, but I just can't see them. I'm going to have to get Microsoft Word to read it out to me. I think that's the only way around it.
So you haven't gotten hit by those Grammarly ads then yet, I take it?
No, well, I wouldn't want to subscribe to any software like that. No, I will just plug through myself. I don't trust anything like Grammarly. Like some people swear by it, but I just prefer to try and read it.
I used it for a while, and actually it does a really good job, but there were certain things that it was doing that were really pissing me off. So I just was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'll just fix it myself. But I've actually, I like when people point out my spelling mistakes and get them cleaned up, because they're such an eyesore if you care about that sort of thing. Like I care about spelling. And so to me, when I find a spelling mistake in somebody else's thing, it's like, it's so cringy. So like I encourage people to point out my spelling mistakes so I can fix them in patches, but it's
not that I dislike having it pointed out to me. It's just that I'm annoyed with myself when it's there. Like, why didn't I see that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've definitely had some of those as well, and it just feels like, really, how did I let that one through? Like that's a really dumb one.
I've written some real bad ones. Two of the worst typos I ever did. I wrote, instead of First World War, I wrote Girls' World War, which I did spot before sending the work off. But one that I didn't spot and did get through to my supervisor was I wrote members of a pubic instead of public. And that one was in a piece of work that I sent off to my supervisor to read. So that was particularly a particular clanger, that one, particularly bad.
Oh man, that's hilarious. I've had a few mistakes like that, and I can't think. I should come up with these for anecdotes as to try to remember these. But I had an incident about 10 years ago at a job where I sent something like so bizarre, and it still made a proper sentence that I almost got fired over it. And so like so now every single email that I send, I like reread it beforehand, just because I'm like, I can't do that again. Like, and it was something like, I'm trying to remember what the damn premise of it was, but I essentially like called one of my coworkers, not a bad word, but just like the word I used could be assumed to be me calling them something I shouldn't have, in an email, and they were CC'd on it. And it was like, I think it was like a subconscious, like Freudian slip. Like I typed up something because I was pissed off at the moment. And so like now I make sure I go read my emails, because the girl thing, like the girl World War or whatever you said, like that's something I've done as well, of like where I type a word that has nothing to do with it, but it probably just slipped into my mind and I was just typing at the time.
Well, I've done
so
that
funny
where I'm talking to my office mate and suddenly I realise I'm typing out what we're saying. And I think, God, that doesn't fit in the thesis at all. I have to cut that out. Supervisor thinking, what the hell is he suddenly talking about this irrelevant topic for?
Oh, that's great. Do you go back and patch out those spelling mistakes, or do you just accept them and live them with them in your mods?
I usually do patch them out because sometimes people don't tell me what they are, though. They say, you've done a spelling mistake. I'm like, well, what is it? But I'll admit to not doing it as as frequently as I should. And I don't, once my mods have been out for a while, I stop reading my comments, because I'll admit that it makes me anxious to read the comments. So again, it's probably bad practice, but I'll admit that I don't patch out things like that as much as I should.
I mean, that's a pretty common thing, I think, with modding, is a lot after a while people stop going at them, because there's a couple of reasons. One is it's unlikely anyone's going to see any additional work you do, because outside of that initial burst, it's pretty hard to keep people downloading. Like, I think Sim Settlements is one of the few that gets constant downloads just because I've decided to just make it my passion, and so like. People have learned that by now, but like if you're not committing to that, then people are not going to think to go download the updates to your mod. They're just going to have the version they have anyway. So then there's like diminishing returns on putting the effort in. But the comment thing, I think that's just good to do on the internet, is to just stop reading comments at some point, like because there can be a lot of horrible things, and it's hard to become immune to it. Like every once in a while, somebody is just a total dickhead in the comments,
So I was just gonna say, I read the comments on Far Harbor Story recently, and somebody just shit on it like so brutally. And even though every single other comment is like, "This is a great mod, I really loved it," and this dude was like completely trashing it, saying it's stupid, it's ridiculous, it doesn't make any sense. I just like, oh no. Even though it's like one negative comment, you just fixate on it. It must be a universal internet experience to have that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in general, and like in your head, if you were to see this person, it's going to be like a 12-year-old kid, or just some like lonely asshat who has no social skills whatsoever, because that's what it's going to require for you to put that out in the world. Like you have like, oh my god, if you or at least people who have no concept of like what it's like to be a creator and to empathize. Like this stuff is all. It's all volunteer time. We don't have the resources of the AAA developers. It's never going to be as fully fleshed out and as deep as those things. And like, so for you to put them under the same lens is insane. Like,
well, that's the thing. Is like one of his comments was the final confrontation that you have in Far Harbor Story, where the main villain Dunwich is completing a ritual. And to stop the ritual, you have to kill him. He pointed out, oh, that's really stupid, but what, to stop an ancient ritual, all you have to do is kill him. And what, your god was just a man with a bit of grey mist around him. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, I can't make a new model of a literal god, because you couldn't even do it in the engine, even if I had that ability. So, I didn't agree with a lot of his criticism, but for some reason, and it wasn't constructive, it was just saying it's stupid. I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? Because I'll take constructive criticism, like people who criticise the voice acting for the original David Hunter, where I did the voice acting, and I'll admit it was bad. Like, my voice acting was bad, because I'm not I just thought, oh, I'll just do the voice acting, it'll be fine, and I now realise it obviously wasn't fine, because my mic quality isn't great. I have an accent that doesn't fit the game world. I probably don't have the most listen-toable voice, I don't think, and I'm just not very, wasn't expressive enough at all, really, in my mod. I was terrible. Even I hated listening to it later on. That's why I remade the whole thing, because it was bad. I completely remade it from the bottom up, because I thought, it's too bad to leave up there. I actually hate my own mod at this point, so I actually have to go back and redo that one.
Oh, that's funny. I can see. If you put everything on all these mods under the same lenses like the AAA stuff, like, you're gonna be disappointed. And like, I think one of the things with Bethesda being more supportive of modding, and I'm happy they did this, is that I think it brought in a new wave of audience of like the people who have been playing mods for Bethesda games for a long time. They know not to do that. Like, they know, like, there's just certain rules everyone knows not to follow. It's like, don't openly trash on mods. Don't ask mod creators to create you mods like that. Those etiquettes, I think,
I've got messages like that in the past. Like, here's an idea for a mod, and he says, I'm an ideas guy, not a modder. And I'm just like, you can kind of tell.
Right.
It's like, because I'm not going to make this mod for this person. Like, it's a huge, unfeasible project they always ask about as well when they ask you to make mods for them.
What's the most outlandish one you've been asked to make?
There was this really complicated one about the Minutemen. It involved, like, he had obviously thought a lot about it, that was the thing, but it was this really complicated, long-winded story that involved, like, fundamentally changing a lot of the actual main story of the game as well to fit in this new Minutemen thing. And I could get kind of why he'd done it, because it was obviously born out of frustration with the lackluster Minuteman story that exists in the base game. But it was such a long, complicated project. I just thought there's no way you could possibly actually do this, like not without a full-on team of people. I don't think people appreciate as well like how it's quite time-consuming, this process. It's not a case of just, throwing something together in a few hours. It was really long-winded. Like, he obviously thought ages about it, though, so that was the thing that made me, it seemed like a passion project as well that he really wanted to get made. It's just a shame it was quite large and difficult and perhaps unfeasible.
That's one of those. So the people that come out with that kind of, I get those periodically as well. For me, though, my most outlandish one is someone asked me to implement the aliens from Alien vs. Predator into Fallout 4. And I was like,
I've never had anything like that.
It's like, I don't know what about my skill set seems like I could do that. But thank you. But anyway, there's not a great path to go from absolute beginner to making more complicated mods. Like there's, like I said, when we started the podcast, is like when I came into Fallout 4 modding, I just wanted somebody to give me a handful of structured tutorials that built on knowledge so that I could like get my head wrapped around it again. So it was like, cause like I had modded briefly for Skyrim, but I didn't know in advance that it was similar and that I could have used that same knowledge. So I was just like, I just want somebody to like give me some steps so that I can be like, all right, I went from knowing nothing. Now I understand the camera. Now I understand how forms work. Now I understand that like, the building on the dialogue. And there's not a lot of that available for Fallout right now. And I don't think there is a lot available for Skyrim, but I still don't think there's an easy way to go from absolute noob. Like if you're just like, I've got this crazy idea about the Minutemen and, they explain all that idea, like telling that person where they should begin is very difficult because there's so many different things involved. And I've always wanted to see kind of almost like a mod school of like, here's just follow these steps, and at the end of this, it's going to take you months to go through all these tutorials, but at the end of it, you will know enough to do any idea you've got, and that way more people could be empowered to kind of run with these passion projects, because the passion and those ideas, those are kind of the fuel to actually make that stuff happen. Like, you can't just have somebody else make that mod for you, because it's going to get to points where you get stuck. It's going to get to points where there's a lot of grind, where it's just like, there's just like a lot of busy work that needs to get done to flesh it all out, and like the only thing that powers you through that is having that passion and that excitement. So, and no one's gonna have it but the idea guy, like at that fundamental level. So I would love to see more tutorial series like yours, of where it's like, these like especially your dialogue stuff, where you take it from, here's a basic dialogue, here's this character's going to say a few things at you, and here's the player choices. Now we're going to take it to the next step. Let's add a loop to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like really take each thing you can do with modding and expand on it from tutorial to tutorial. Yeah.
It can be quite hard even to do that kind of thing. I think that's probably why there isn't very much of it. Because, like, for example, if you want to do a tutorial on how to do a quest, how do you even begin to make that into a watchable video? Because like there's so much that a quest can encompass. Do you want a quest where you just have to walk into a room or pick up an object, bring an object to somebody, kill somebody, a quest of choice? Is like, how do you put that into a video that is going to actually be watchable? Because a lot of my process with making quests, there's a lot of dithering and me thinking, oh, well, how does this work? And what should I have happen next? And there's a lot, it's not really it wouldn't be watchable if I just said to somebody, watch me make a quest.
Right.
I spend a lot of time like experimenting and thinking, what happens if I do this, and I'll sort of do this and I'll do that and stuff like that. So
it definitely would have to be an after the fact thing. It would have to be like you come up with the whole process, take notes, and then go back and make a video out of it. Because it would almost, I would say from like a questing perspective, you would approach it from what are the types of quests. So like here, I'll teach you how to do a kill quest. Next, I'll teach you how to do a fetch quest. Then we'll teach you how to do a collect X items quest. You know what I mean? Like break up the different, because at the end of the day, I haven't done the research to figure out what the actual number is or what the different types are, but I imagine if you break it down to like the simple machine level, there are only so many different quest types that can actually exist.
I suppose if there's, collect something, go to a place, kill a person, I mean, what much else could there be at a fundamental level? Hack a terminal to turn something on. It can only be, I suppose, that. But then there's things where with a fetch quest, you might have, for example, a fetch quest where you say, go and get me my completely unique item, like my, just pick up something off my desk, my pair of nail scissors, and you have to go and get Steve's nail scissors. Right. Or you might have a quest that is to go and get me, one specific Abraxo cleaner, or you might have to say, back like in Vault 81, bring me 3 fusion cores, and the process of making those is all totally different. So that's 3 different videos right there, just on
Well,
fetch
see,
quests.
I would say the first 2 are the same. They're fetch a MacGuffin is what I would call that.
Well, I suppose it depends on the method, because if, for example, if no nail scissors existed anywhere in the world except Steve's nail scissors, that would be easier than if he wanted you to go and get an Abraxo cleaner where you could pick up any one of the Abraxos, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, but so you break those down into like the so then it's fetch quests, and then here are the subtypes of fetch quests. So I think it could be broken down, but I think it would be a monster project to do. I don't think it would be a one-man project. It seems to me like one of those you get a team together and your goal is to train everybody. In fact, we had a group going for a while. We were going to do that, but the person who was in charge of it had real life stuff to deal with and it never manifested into anything. But I've always loved that idea of and I think I actually had invited you to it at one point, but you intelligently told me you intelligently told me I don't think I can commit to it. I don't have the time, and that was a good move, because it was going to be
that's what happens with a lot of things. I get invited on a lot of group projects, and as a general rule, I think we discussed this as well a few times, but I say no because I find it hard. I find them stressful and hard to commit time to.
Sure.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, but you
were
one of the better ones
in theory. I'd love in theory if it was like a mod academy or something, and it could almost be somebody's like job, like a mod school, and it could be your like to teach people to mod. I like the idea.
Right.
But it's like actually doing it is a complicated endeavor, because you got to wrangle people together to actually do it.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of things like that involve a lot of people, like weapons are a great example. Like that's not just a one-man job. You need somebody to do the custom sounds for it. You need somebody to animate it. You have to have somebody to build all the different mods for it and model the thing. And then if you're a modeler but not a texture artist, you need a texture artist. So like, and then like just the idea of adding in a weapon is also immensely complex in the creation kit. Like there are you have your projectiles, your explosives, your OMODs. Like there's all these different pieces that make it up. Like it's like I bet you could do 15 tutorials deep to get to explain how to make a weapon. Like so like then on a surface somebody an idea man comes along and says I want to add a hybrid between an Uzi and an AK-47. I'm like, great, well here are the things you're going to need to learn. It's going to take you a few months, buddy. It's going to look like trash the first time.
If somebody came to me and said, make a weapon from scratch, I mean, I wouldn't even be able to do that, because it then involves skills that I just don't have, like 3D modeling and texture work. Like if you gave me the components, I could do the creation kit side, but the 3D modeling and the audio and the textures, I wouldn't even know how to start. Like with the right programs you'd need and all kinds of stuff. I just wouldn't be able to. It's way outside my skill set.
I mean, you could probably do it with buying assets or like finding freebies online. It just wouldn't look great. But there are certain limitations. Like one of the biggest hurdles for people to get into Fallout 4 modding is 3D Studio Max, because there are certain things that you can't do in any other software, and it's really dumb. You have to have this specific version from 2013 that isn't even purchasable anymore. So you almost are forced to pirate in order to actually mod Fallout 4 fully. So like. It's absolutely absurd, because there's a handful of like I happen to own tons of versions of 3D Studio Max for work, so like I was one of the few people, but I bet it's a dozen people total who actually legitimately happen to own that version of 3D Studio Max that mod Fallout 4. I mean, obviously thousands of people own the software, but of people who mod Fallout 4, it's very, very few people who actually own that software legitimately, which is kind of funny.
See, this is why I just stick to basic quests with the pre-existing assets. It's a lot simpler.
There's actually a really good pool of assets in Fallout 4, because I remember at one point we had a 3D modeler come on the team and they were just going to build random assets, and so I went to the rest of the team and I was like, all right guys, we have somebody who's willing to build assets, send me a list. And like they were struggling to come up with like things we absolutely needed that we didn't have, and it was like like we came up with like musical instruments, like I think hay bale was on there, open books. Like it was like a surprisingly tame list where I was in my head, I was thinking, oh, I bet they'll send me back 150 things that they could use right off the top. But most things are either available or there's something that works as a good enough proxy that you can just make do with what's in their kit. So there's a good asset kit in Fallout 4.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that sort of looks like other stuff, or if you put it
Right.
with this other thing, it looks like a totally different object. There's quite a lot of sort of unique environments you can create just with what they've got in the creation kit.
Yeah, their machine kit is especially useful for that. They did a really good job with that. I've merged a lot of little parts, like they've got little valves and handles and grates and stuff that you can build pretty interesting looking machinery out of.
Yeah, it's especially when I'm making a vault mod. There's like so much you can do with like the industrial kit set and things like that.
Yeah, it's nice and deep. I really appreciate that Bethesda puts all that stuff in, and some of it you can see they left in there from development that's never get used in the game, but they probably just left it in to be like, maybe the modders will make use of it, which is pretty cool.
Actually doing modding, I've actually found comments that they've left in their scripts that say, "Modders, if you want to do this, here's how you do it." And I'm like, well, that's actually really, really handy.
Yeah,
It's like it was like when I made a Radink the mod, I had a Nuka Cola in it, but you couldn't put it on the shelves for the DLC. So I thought, well, let's have a look at how the shelves work. And I went in and had a look at the shelves, and there was just a comment in the script that said, "Modders, if you want to add a new Nuka Cola, here's how you do it." And I'm like, oh, well, that saved me a lot of reverse engineering time, 'cause it's just written in a script comment. So I thought that was really neat.
yeah, that is awesome. But yeah, they're one of the only companies that are doing it. Like the fact that there is now a mods menu on the main screen of Fallout 4 and Skyrim Special Edition is like is mind blowing to me, because it's you don't get like the closest we've ever had to that really in the past are you would have like I know like StarCraft 2 has like the arcade section to promote the custom games, and then I think it was pretty well publicly supported by Valve with the Half-Life 2 modding scene, but like it's pretty rare anymore that you get like open support from a game company for people to like put out more content for their games, which is shocking to me. You would think that would be openly embraced more. Like they would be like, guys, there are thousands of people out in the world who get obsessed with games who are happy to produce more content. Just release your tools. Like just give. It doesn't matter how hard they are. You could release them with no instructions, and you will find there will be a small, passionate fan base who will figure them out and release more stuff for your game and keep it relevant for longer.
Yeah, it makes sense even from a business perspective, because part of the selling point of the Fallout games is, and the modding community keep it going for so long, so people are still buying Fallout. Like if you go on the top sellers in a sale, a Fallout might be on there, because people just think, oh well, it's a great time to jump into it because there's so many mods.
Right, and then now you've got essentially all these Twitch and YouTubers who are promoting your games indirectly because of the modding scene. Like, well, like nobody would be playing Fallout 4 to this day, like if it weren't for mods. Like that game would have disappeared, and then that makes the franchise like less relevant. So then you've got people promoting your franchises, and then on top of that, it's almost free R&D, because when modders come up with something that's really good and sticks and feels well in the franchise, you can just steal that idea for your next game.
Oh yeah, and they do it, like weapon modifications for New Vegas. Wasn't that actually borrowed from a mod that someone made for Fallout 3?
Oh, I'm
I
sure
think
it was.
actually
And I think
directly a weapons mod was made for Fallout 3, and so they thought when it got to New Vegas, hey, let's put this this function in the game.
Right. Well, and the people say I never played it, but the real-time settler from New Vegas apparently plays almost exactly like the Fallout 4 settlement system. And so
I never played that mod.
So there's like tons of people out in the community that can essentially figure out what works well in your game worlds and kind of give you a skeleton of how to develop it. So a lot of people joke on my videos all the time of like, I can't wait to see Bethesda steal Sim Settlements and put it into Fallout 5. I'm like, I would actually be ecstatic about that, because then I don't have to do all that work, because it was a lot of work.
It would probably be a pretty good homage. Probably feel pretty good to have your work, inspire actual content in the official game.
Right. I actually wouldn't find it like theft. I would find it like, oh, they were inspired by it. Awesome. And then if anything, that lets me then build on that work. So then if I if I was so moved to make it different, it would be like, well, good. They lay down a lot of foundation. It's at the engine. And that's another thing. It's like with mods, we're always building we're building up a layer. So we're on like a virtual engine essentially. A lot of the stuff that the Bethesda does is at the engine level, so it ends up being a lot faster and more streamlined, and like then you have like UI stuff. So the more they do, the lower level that stuff, the better, because then it's more It's more fully integrated. It runs smoother, and then than the stuff we're doing. So if they were to build, for example, a Sims Elements, it would go faster, it would have better UI integration, and it would just feel more complete. And then anything we wanted to put on top of it could take advantage of all those features. So I am very pro game companies offering modding and then stealing our ideas from us. Yeah. Go for it, guys.
Yes, it could be a better version of what we can do, and then we can build on that better version, and so on and so forth. Yeah, build on each other's ideas, yeah.
Yeah, it's a standing on the shoulders of giants idea. So like,
yeah,
anything
that's a good way of looking at it.
So yeah, I'm all for it. I am pro theft from game companies, I guess, which sounds weird.
Pro theft. Not many people say that.
Don't quote me on that, please, people. But awesome. Well, it's been great talking with you. Do you so you don't have anything to promote then, because you don't want anyone to know about your next mod release date because you're not ready to.
Yeah, basically, the only thing to promote is that even though I don't do tutorials as frequently and I haven't released anymore, that I am still active. I guess it's the only thing to actually promote. I've not given up or died. That seems to be what people always say on YouTube. Have you died? No, that's not. I've not died. I'm still knocking around, and I'm still working on projects, albeit slowly. Because I've got a lot of work with my PhD and so on to do. That always comes first, but I'm still around and making mods, and eventually there will be another mod, and I'm hoping it will be Forville, and that I won't grind to a complete halt on it. But I'm excited about it, so I think it will be done.
Well, I hope to see more tutorials from you as well, as you discover new cool stuff, because that's something I've been doing personally, of just like, at least at bare minimum I take notes or post on the forums of like, hey, I spent 30 hours figuring this out, here you guys go. Once in a while that's a nice thing to do, just because there's a lot of what would you call it, like there's a lot of knowledge there's a term for this, there's a lot of knowledge that's like tribal in the modding community, and not intentionally, it's just that like this small group figured it out and they just didn't think to share it, and so then everybody else is stuck not knowing how to do that.
Yeah, it can especially happen if you don't know something is a problem. Like if it's just a piece of knowledge you have and you don't know it isn't common knowledge, you can end up accidentally hoarding knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, so I should do more tutorial. I know I should, because I do have a spreadsheet of tutorial ideas, but it's just a case of sometimes I do have a lot. I'm busy, and sometimes I'd lack for motivation. I guess to be straight up honest, sometimes I just think, oh well, do I really want to? It's a lot more work than you'd think, because like we said with making requests, there's a lot of planning that is done in advance, so that I don't end up stammering and stuttering over what I'm doing. And even then, I do ramble in my videos, so I do my best. But.
Well, if this helps with your motivation, I can tell you that I am very appreciative of your tutorials, and everybody who asks me where they should get started, I point them to your channel.
It's good to hear, and as I say in the videos, I hope it helps.
It definitely does. And so everybody show some love to Seddon in the comments. Let him know how much you appreciate his tutorials. And if you've been thinking about modding and you're looking for somewhere to start, check out his channel. I will link that in the description. He does great stuff. He does stammer a little bit, but it's still way more organized than almost anybody else out there on YouTube. And we appreciate all the work you do, man.
Right. Glad I'm helpful.
All right, man. Take care. And thanks for joining us.
All right. It was a pleasure.